Nestled on the quiet, sun-soaked plains of southern Texas, Maria Delgado's ranch has stood as a symbol of strength and perseverance for generations. For 90 years, Maria has fought to keep her family's legacy alive, a sprawling piece of land that carries the echoes of a history few truly understand. But now, her tranquil existence is under siege. When a ruthless gang led by the menacing Juan Vargas demands she give up her land, Maria refuses to bow to their threats. The gang's interest in her ranch goes far beyond greed. Whispers of hidden treasures and long-buried secrets swirl like the dust in the wind, and Maria knows her fight is not just about protecting her home. It's about protecting the truth. Desperate for help, Maria calls upon her nephew, Alex Carter, a hardened former Navy SEAL with a past he's tried to leave behind. Drawn back to the ranch by loyalty and a sense of duty, Alex quickly realizes the fight is far more dangerous than it seems. The gang's violence is only the surface. Lurking in the shadows is an even greater threat. A powerful politician who will stop at nothing to use the ranch for his own sinister purposes. As tensions rise and the danger escalates, Alex and Maria must face impossible odds. Old betrayals resurface, family bonds are tested, and the fight for justice becomes a battle for survival. What secrets does Maria's land hold? How far will Alex go to protect his family? And when the dust finally settles, who will remain standing? With action, heart, and a story that explores the power of resilience, the legacy of Maria's ranch invites you to uncover a tale of courage, sacrifice, and the unyielding pursuit of justice. What begins as a battle for one family's home will transform into a fight for the soul of an entire community. The story starts here. Are you ready? The story opens with a serene and picturesque scene at Maria Delgado's ranch, situated near the southern border of Texas. Maria, a 90-year-old widow with a sharp mind and an unwavering resolve, has spent decades tending to the land her family has owned for generations. Her ranch, surrounded by rolling hills and sprawling fields, represents not only her life's work but also a legacy she intends to protect at all costs. As the sun sets on a quiet afternoon, Maria's peaceful routine is interrupted by the distant roar of motorcycles approaching her property. A chill runs through her as she spots a group of men riding into her driveway. These aren't casual visitors. They are members of Los Diablos, a notorious gang that has been terrorizing the region. Their leader, Juan Vargas, steps forward, a menacing figure clad in a leather jacket with scars that hint at a violent past. Juan wastes no time delivering his ultimatum. He claims the land is now under the gang's protection and demands that Maria sign over her ranch, offering her a pitiful sum in exchange. Maria, though visibly shaken, refuses to back down. She confronts Juan with a firm voice, declaring that this land is her family's heritage and she will never give it up. Juan, unimpressed by her defiance, issues a chilling warning. Think carefully, Senora. The next time we come, we won't just be talking. The gang leaves, their laughter echoing ominously as their motorcycles fade into the distance. Maria locks her doors and takes a moment to steady herself. Though fear lingers, her resolve remains unshaken. She retrieves an old rotary phone from her kitchen, dials a number she hasn't called in years, and waits as it rings. On the other end, her nephew, Alex Carter, picks up. Alex, a former Navy SEAL who now works as a private security consultant, answers with a mix of concern and curiosity. Maria explains the situation in a calm but urgent tone, describing the gang's threats and her fear that they may return with violence. Alex immediately assures her that he'll be there as soon as possible. Though he hasn't visited the ranch in years, his loyalty to his aunt and his sense of justice leave him no choice. The next morning, Alex arrives at the ranch in his rugged pickup truck, a symbol of his practical, no-nonsense approach to life. He's a tall, broad-shouldered man in his early 30s, with a quiet confidence that comes from years of training and experience. Maria greets him warmly, her relief evident, though she tries to maintain her usual composed demeanor. Alex quickly assesses the situation, inspecting the property and noting vulnerabilities in its security. As he walks the perimeter of the ranch, he spots motorcycle tire tracks near the fence line, a clear sign that the gang has been watching. His military instincts kick in as he formulates a plan to fortify the ranch and protect his aunt. Over dinner that evening, Maria and Alex discuss the broader context of the threat. Maria reveals that the gang has been terrorizing the surrounding villages, extorting money from farmers and small business owners. She speaks with quiet determination, emphasizing that the ranch isn't just a piece of land. It's a symbol of resistance against corruption and greed. Alex, deeply moved by his aunt's courage, promises her that he will do whatever it takes to keep her safe. As the chapter closes, Maria retreats to her bedroom, where she opens a small, weathered chest at the foot of her bed. Inside, she retrieves an old medal engraved with a cryptic insignia and a faded photograph of herself in a military uniform, standing beside a man who appears to be a commanding officer. Her fingers tremble as she brushes dust off the photo, her eyes filled with a mixture of pride and sorrow. Whatever secrets Maria has kept buried for decades, it's clear they're tied to the danger now threatening her home. The stage is set for a battle, not just for the ranch but for justice itself. With Alex's arrival and Maria's steely resolve, the fight against Los Diablos is about to begin. But beneath the surface lies a deeper story, one of family, sacrifice, and a past that refuses to stay buried. As dawn breaks over the quiet Texas landscape, the hum of an approaching truck disrupts the stillness. Maria steps out onto the porch, shading her eyes from the rising sun as a rugged pickup rumbles down the dirt driveway. Behind the wheel is her nephew, Alex Carter, a man shaped by years of combat and discipline, his sharp eyes scanning the horizon as if expecting danger at every turn. Maria's heart swells with relief as Alex steps out of the truck, his frame towering and solid, his presence immediately comforting. "It's been too long," Maria says, pulling him into a warm hug. Though it's been years since Alex last visited, the bond between them remains unbroken. "I couldn't sit back and do nothing after what you told me," Alex replies, his voice steady but filled with concern. They sit on the porch as Maria recounts the gang's threats in more detail. She speaks calmly, but Alex can see the tension in her hands as she grips her coffee mug. "They want this land, Alex, and they don't take no for an answer." Her words hang in the air, heavy with unspoken fears. Alex wastes no time. He walks the perimeter of the ranch, taking mental notes of its vulnerabilities. The fence is old but sturdy, the barn could provide a strategic vantage point, and the house itself, though modest, has thick walls that could hold against an attack. He spots motorcycle tracks in the dirt near the back of the property, evidence that the gang has been scouting the ranch. His military instincts tell him that they'll be back, and soon. In the afternoon, Alex drives into town to gather supplies. He picks up security cameras, motion detectors, and reinforced locks. At the hardware store, he notices the wary glances of the locals. When he introduces himself as Maria's nephew, their guarded expressions shift to pity. "That gang doesn't back off," one store clerk warns him. "They've already run 3 families off their land. They'll do the same to her if you're not careful." Undeterred, Alex returns to the ranch and begins installing the equipment. Maria watches him work from the porch, her face a mixture of admiration and worry. "You don't have to stay, you know," she says, her voice soft. "This fight might not end well." Alex pauses, wiping sweat from his brow. "I'm not leaving, Aunt Maria. This is your home. No one's taking it from you." His words are firm, and Maria nods, her eyes misting with gratitude. That evening, as the sun dips below the horizon, Alex and Maria sit at the kitchen table, sharing a quiet meal. The ranch feels peaceful, but both know it's a fragile calm before the storm. Maria tells Alex more about the gang's leader, Juan Vargas. "He's not just some thug," she says. "He's calculated, ruthless, and he knows how to intimidate people without lifting a finger." Alex listens intently, mentally filing away every detail. "Do you know why he wants this land so badly?" he asks. Maria hesitates, her gaze dropping to her hands. "I have a few ideas," she says cryptically. Alex doesn't press her, sensing that there's more to her story than she's ready to share. Later that night, as Alex finishes securing the final motion detector on the barn, he notices a figure lingering by the edge of the property. He calls out, "Who's there?" but the figure slips away into the darkness before he can get a good look. Alex returns to the house, his senses on high alert. Inside, Maria is waiting with a concerned expression. "What is it?" she asks. "Just someone watching from the fence line," Alex replies. "They're testing us, seeing how we respond." Maria's face tightens, but she nods. "Then let them see that we're not afraid." The next morning, Alex spots a car pulling up to the ranch. It's Ramon, Maria's cousin, who arrives with a friendly smile and a tray of tamales. "I heard about the trouble," Ramon says, his tone warm. "Thought I'd come by and help out." Maria seems pleased to see him, but Alex remains cautious. Something about Ramon feels off. His eagerness to help seems a little too convenient. Still, Alex doesn't voice his concerns, deciding to keep a close eye on Ramon instead. As the day unfolds, Alex continues to fortify the ranch, but the uneasy feeling in his gut grows stronger. He senses that the battle ahead will be more complicated than he anticipated. Maria's quiet resilience and Ramon's unexpected arrival add layers to the situation, making it clear that this is not just a fight for land but a fight for the truth and for survival. As night falls again, Alex sits on the porch with his rifle resting across his lap, his gaze fixed on the dark horizon. The silence of the Texas night is deceiving, masking the danger that he knows is drawing closer. Inside, Maria kneels beside her bed, clutching an old medal in her hands. Her whispered prayers fill the room as she asks for strength, not for herself, but for Alex. The chapter ends with a shot of the ranch under the moonlight, fortified but vulnerable, as shadows linger in the distance. The storm is coming, and both Alex and Maria know that when it arrives, it will test everything they have. The early morning light filters through the curtains of Maria's modest home as Alex drinks his coffee, seated at the kitchen table. The previous night had been eerily quiet, too quiet. Alex knows that the gang is planning something, but he doesn't yet know when or how they'll strike. Maria joins him at the table, her hands slightly trembling as she places her cup down. "You've been asking why they want this land," she begins, her voice low and deliberate. Alex sets his cup down and leans forward, sensing this is the moment Maria will reveal what she's been hiding. Maria begins to recount a part of her life that she's kept secret for decades. "When I was younger, before I married your uncle, I worked for the CIA," she says, her eyes fixed on the window as though looking into the past. Alex's eyebrows lift in surprise, but he doesn't interrupt. "I was stationed in Mexico during the Cold War," Maria continues. "My job was to gather intelligence on drug cartels and disrupt their operations. It was dangerous work, but I believed in what we were doing. One of my informants was Juan Vargas." The name sends a chill through Alex. "The gang leader?" Maria nods, her expression hardening. "Back then, he was just a street thug trying to rise through the ranks. I gave him a chance to prove himself by feeding me information about his rivals. For a while, it worked. We dismantled one of the biggest cartels in the region because of his tips, but then he betrayed me." Maria pauses, her hands gripping the edge of the table. "He sold us out to the very cartel we were targeting. My partner was killed in an ambush. I barely made it out alive." Alex processes her words, piecing together how this history might explain the gang's interest in the ranch. "And now he's back," Alex says, his tone grim. Maria nods again. "But it's not just revenge he's after. This land holds more value than you realize." She rises from her chair and gestures for Alex to follow her. Maria leads him to the barn, where she pulls back a loose floorboard to reveal a small, hidden compartment. Inside is an old, yellowed map and a leather-bound notebook. "This belonged to my grandfather," Maria explains. "He fought in the Mexican Revolution and worked with the rebels to protect their resources. The legend goes that they hid a treasure, gold, documents, weapons, on this land to keep it from falling into the wrong hands." Alex studies the map, his military mind immediately analyzing the terrain. "You think the gang knows about this?" "I'm certain of it," Maria replies. "Juan doesn't just want the land. He wants what's buried beneath it." Their conversation is interrupted by the sound of a truck approaching the ranch. Alex grabs his rifle and steps outside, shielding Maria behind him. A weathered old pickup pulls into the driveway, and Ramon steps out, carrying a bag of tools. Thought I'd stop by and help reinforce the barn, Ramon says, his smile too wide, his tone too cheerful. Alex forces a polite nod, but his gut tells him not to trust Ramon. Something about his sudden eagerness to assist feels off. Nevertheless, Alex decides to let him stay, hoping to keep an eye on him. As the day goes on, Alex notices small details that deepen his suspicions. Ramon lingers near the fence line, speaking quietly into his phone when he thinks no one is watching. He seems more interested in asking questions about Alex's plans than actually helping. Later that evening, Alex pulls Maria aside. "I don't trust Ramon," he says bluntly. Maria looks troubled but doesn't seem surprised. "He's family, Alex," she says. "That doesn't mean he's not working with them," Alex replies. Before they can discuss further, the silence of the night is shattered by the distant sound of motorcycles revving. Alex rushes outside, scanning the horizon with his binoculars. In the faint moonlight, he spots a group of riders circling just outside the ranch's perimeter. "They're testing us," Alex mutters. Maria joins him on the porch, clutching a shotgun. "Then let them see we're ready." The gang doesn't make a direct move that night, but their presence is enough to keep Alex on high alert. As he patrols the property, he notices fresh tire tracks near the edge of the ranch. He crouches down to inspect them and finds a cigarette but still warm. Someone has been there recently. Returning to the house, Alex finds Ramon in the kitchen, drinking coffee. Alex leans against the doorway, watching him carefully. "You see anything out there tonight?" Alex asks casually. Ramon shakes his head. "Nope, nothing." But Alex doesn't miss the flicker of unease in Ramon's eyes. That night, Alex stays awake, watching the monitors he set up around the property. His thoughts are a storm of questions. How much does Ramon know? What will the gang's next move be? And most importantly, how far is Juan Vargas willing to go to take what he wants? The chapter ends with Alex sitting in the darkened living room, his rifle across his lap, while Maria prays quietly in her room. Outside, the sound of a single motorcycle echoes faintly in the distance, a haunting reminder that the fight is far from over. The sun rises over Maria's ranch, casting long shadows across the yard as Alex begins his morning patrol. Every corner of the property is now rigged with cameras and motion sensors, but Alex knows that defense is only half the battle. To win, he needs to stay a step ahead of Juan Vargas and his gang. Maria emerges from the house, carrying a tray with fresh coffee and breakfast. Despite the constant tension, her strength and grace remain unwavering. "You've done a lot to protect this place," she says, handing Alex a cup. "But this fight isn't just about defenses. You have to think about what they'll do next." Alex nods, his mind already working through possible scenarios. He knows the gang is watching and waiting, testing for weaknesses. As he scans the horizon, he spots Ramon walking toward the barn, toolbox in hand. Ramon's sudden eagerness to help has been gnawing at Alex. The man hasn't stopped asking questions about the ranch's security setup since he arrived, and Alex's instincts are screaming that something isn't right. Later that day, while Alex is repairing a section of the fence, Maria finds him with a troubled expression. "I overheard Ramon on the phone earlier," she says quietly. "He was talking in hushed tones, and he mentioned Juan's name." Alex sets down his tools, his jaw tightening. "What exactly did he say?" "I couldn't hear much, but it sounded like he was giving someone directions, something about the south field." Alex wastes no time. He walks back to the house and finds Ramon in the kitchen, scrolling through his phone. "Ramon," Alex says, his voice calm but firm, "we need to talk." Ramon looks up, his smile faltering under Alex's intense gaze. "Sure, what about?" "About why you're here," Alex replies, stepping closer. "And who you've been talking to." For a moment, Ramon tries to maintain his composure, but Alex's presence is too intimidating. Finally, Ramon sighs and sets his phone on the counter. "Look, Alex, it's not what you think," he begins, his tone defensive. "Then tell me what it is," Alex says, crossing his arms. Ramon hesitates, then blurts out, "I owe them money." "Okay? A lot of money. They told me if I help them get what they want, they clear my debt." Maria, who has been listening from the doorway, gasps. "How could you, Ramon?" she says, her voice trembling with hurt. I didn't have a choice. Ramon snaps, his frustration spilling over. Do you know what they would have done to me if I said no? They would have done worse to her, Alex says coldly, gesturing toward Maria. And you knew that. You betrayed your own family. Ramon lowers his head, shame creeping into his expression. I thought maybe if I helped them, they'd leave her alone. Alex steps forward, his voice hard as steel. That's not how these people work, Ramon. You just made things worse. Before Alex can decide what to do with him, the sound of motorcycles cuts through the air. Alex rushes outside, his rifle at the ready, as a group of gang members appears at the edge of the property. They don't come closer, but their presence is a clear message. They're ready to escalate. One of the gang members shouts, "You think you can keep us out forever, old man? This land belongs to us now." Alex raises his rifle and fires a warning shot into the air. Get off this property, or the next one won't be a warning, he yells back. The gang members laugh, their leader stepping forward. We'll be back, he calls out. And when we come, you'll wish you'd handed it over. They retreat, but Alex knows they're planning something bigger. He turns to Ramon, who has followed him outside. You're going to fix this, Alex says, his voice low and dangerous. You're going to tell me everything you told them, and then you're going to help me stop them. Ramon nods reluctantly, his guilt too heavy to argue. That night, Alex, Maria, and Ramon sit at the kitchen table, mapping out a plan. Ramon reveals that the gang plans to use the south field as an entry point, exploiting its weaker fence line. He also admits that Juan Vargas is growing impatient and may attack the ranch within the next 48 hours. As they strategize, Maria speaks up. We're not just fighting for this ranch. We're fighting for everyone who's been hurt by them. Her voice is steady, but her eyes shine with determination. Alex glances at her, his respect for his aunt deepening. Then we'll make sure they don't hurt anyone else, he says. The chapter ends with Alex walking the perimeter one last time before sunrise. The ranch feels like a fortress, but Alex knows that no defense is impenetrable. As he looks out over the dark fields, he whispers to himself, if they come, we'll be ready. Unbeknownst to him, shadows move in the distance. Juan Vargas and his men are closer than anyone realizes. The stillness of the night is shattered by the distant rumble of motorcycles. Alex, already on high alert, is crouched in the barn, scanning the property through his night vision binoculars. He spots them, headlights bobbing in the distance as Juan Vargas and his gang approach. Their numbers are larger than before, at least a dozen men, armed and ready. Inside the house, Maria stands by the window, gripping her old shotgun tightly. Ramon, still riddled with guilt, paces nervously in the kitchen. Are you sure this plan will work? He asks Alex, who's just come inside to give them final instructions. It has to, Alex replies, his voice calm but firm. Stick to your position. Don't engage unless absolutely necessary. I'll handle them. Maria steps forward, placing a hand on Alex's shoulder. Be careful, she says, her eyes filled with both pride and worry. As the gang reaches the ranch's perimeter, they spread out, their shadows flitting between trees and along the fence line. Alex's traps, carefully set up over the past few days, are about to be tested. Suddenly, a loud snap echoes through the still air, a tripwire. One of the gang members stumbles, triggering a hidden flashbang. The explosion of light and sound disorients the group, throwing their advance into chaos. Move. Spread out. Juan Vargas roars, waving his men forward. From his vantage point in the barn, Alex takes aim with his rifle and fires a precise shot. The bullet hits the ground near one of the gang members, forcing him to retreat. Alex doesn't aim to kill, yet. His goal is to hold them off and protect Maria at all costs. The gang regroups and charges the fence. Another trap is triggered, a row of spike strips hidden beneath the tall grass. Tires blow out, and motorcycles screech to a halt. The men curse loudly as they abandon their bikes and move forward on foot. Inside the house, Maria watches the chaos unfold through the window. Ramon, still visibly shaken, asks, "Why don't we just call the cops?" "They won't get here in time," Maria says firmly. "And even if they did, these men wouldn't wait around to be arrested. This is up to us. Back outside, the gang breaches the fence. Alex moves quickly, using the shadows to his advantage. He picks them off one by one, targeting their weapons and forcing them to scatter. But the gang is relentless, and their sheer numbers begin to overwhelm the traps Alex set. Juan Vargas steps into the clearing, his men flanking him. "Enough games," he shouts, his voice echoing across the ranch. "We know what you're hiding, old woman. Give us the map, and we'll let you walk away." Inside the house, Maria's face hardens. She knows what Juan is after, but she refuses to let him take it. "Over my dead body," she mutters under her breath. Juan signals his men to advance toward the house. Alex, realizing the gang is closing in, retreats to a defensive position near the porch. "They're coming for the house," he radios to Maria and Ramon. "Stay inside and lock the doors." The first gang member reaches the porch, but Alex is ready. He emerges from the shadows, disarming the man with a swift strike and knocking him unconscious. Another approaches, only to be met with a swift kick that sends him tumbling down the steps. But the gang keeps coming. Juan, standing at a distance, watches the fight unfold with a sinister grin. "You can't protect her forever, Carter," he taunts. Inside, Maria and Ramon hear the sound of shattering glass as one of the gang members breaks through a window. Ramon, trembling, picks up a baseball bat and swings with all his might, knocking the intruder to the ground. "Get away from her," he shouts, his fear momentarily replaced by courage. Maria, meanwhile, stands her ground in the living room, her shotgun aimed at the door. When another gang member bursts in, she fires a warning shot, forcing him to flee. Outside, Alex is losing ground. The gang is relentless, and even his military training can only do so much against their numbers. He retreats toward the house, firing strategically to slow their advance. As the gang surrounds the house, Juan steps forward, holding a megaphone. "This is your last chance, Senora. Give me the map, or we'll burn this place to the ground." Maria steps onto the porch, her shotgun in hand. "You'll get nothing from me, Vargas," she says defiantly. Juan smirks. "Have it your way." He signals to one of his men, who sets fire to a pile of hay near the barn. Flames begin to spread, casting an orange glow across the property. Alex rushes to extinguish the fire, but he's ambushed by two gang members. A brutal hand-to-hand fight ensues, with Alex using every ounce of his training to overpower them. Inside, Maria and Ramon fight to keep the gang out of the house. Ramon, finally stepping up, uses his knowledge of the ranch to trigger a hidden sprinkler system, dousing the flames and slowing the attackers. The turning point comes when Alex, battered but determined, manages to flank Juan Vargas. Using the element of surprise, he disarms Juan and holds him at gunpoint. "Call them off," Alex growls, his voice filled with fury. Juan hesitates, his bravado faltering under Alex's cold gaze. "Fine," he says, raising his hands. He signals his men to retreat. As the gang disperses, Alex keeps his gun trained on Juan. "This isn't over, Vargas," Alex warns. "If you come back, you won't walk away." Juan sneers but doesn't respond. He turns and walks away, leaving the ranch in a tense, smoky silence. As dawn breaks, the ranch is left battered but standing. Maria and Ramon step outside, surveying the damage. "We held them off," Maria says, her voice steady. "For now," Alex replies, his eyes scanning the horizon. He knows this victory is only temporary. Juan Vargas won't stop until he gets what he wants. But Alex is ready. With Maria's resilience and Ramon's newfound courage, they'll face whatever comes next, together. The morning after the attack on the ranch, a heavy stillness hangs in the air. Alex steps outside, his boots crunching on the scorched dirt where the barn fire had been extinguished. The property is battered, fences broken, and windows shattered, but it's still standing. Maria sits quietly on the porch, her shotgun resting across her lap. The lines on her face seem deeper, but her resolve is unbroken. "They'll be back," she says simply. Alex nods. He knows she's right. Juan Vargas and his gang aren't the kind to retreat for long. But something about the attack doesn't sit right with Alex. The sheer coordination and the resources the gang deployed seem excessive for a group of criminals simply seeking land or treasure. As he finishes his patrol of the property, Alex finds a phone lying in the dirt, likely dropped by one of the gang members during the skirmish. He picks it up, his instincts telling him this might hold the answers he's been looking for. Back inside the house, Alex plugs the phone into his laptop and begins decrypting its contents. Maria and Ramon watch silently, both knowing better than to interrupt his focused work. After an hour of scanning messages and call logs, Alex's expression hardens. "This isn't just about the ranch," he says finally, turning the laptop to show Maria and Ramon the screen. Maria leans in, her eyes narrowing as she reads the text exchanges between Juan Vargas and an unknown contact. The messages reference shipments, transactions, and coded terms that Alex recognizes from his time in the Navy SEALs as indicators of arms trafficking. "Juan isn't working alone," Alex continues. "He's taking orders from someone higher up, a politician, judging by the messages." Maria's brow furrows. A politician? What would they want with this land? Alex scrolls further, pulling up a contact name, Robert Steele. He recognizes it immediately. "Steele," Alex mutters. "He's a senator. Corrupt as they come." Maria's face pales. "I've heard of him. He's been trying to expand his power in this region for years. If he's involved with Juan, this is bigger than just treasure. He's using the gang to do his dirty work." As the pieces fall into place, Alex realizes the stakes are far higher than he imagined. The ranch isn't just a target for its potential hidden riches. It's a strategic location for Steele's operations. If Steele gains control of the land, he could use it as a hub for smuggling arms across the border. Determined to gather more evidence, Alex contacts an old Navy buddy, Tyler, who now works in cybersecurity. "I need everything you can find on Senator Robert Steele," Alex says over the phone. "Emails, financial records, anything that ties him to Vargas and this gang." While Alex waits for Tyler to dig deeper, he takes Maria and Ramon into town to speak with some of the locals. The small village has been living under the gang's shadow for years, and Alex believes someone might know more about Steele's involvement. At the local cafe, they speak with Rosa, a shop owner whose son was recently forced to join the gang under threat of violence. Through tears, she tells them about strange meetings she's seen between Steele's aides and Vargas. "They think we're too scared to notice," she says, "but we see everything." As they leave the cafe, Alex notices a black SUV parked across the street. Its windows are tinted, and it doesn't belong in a town this small. Alex's instincts kick in, and he motions for Maria and Ramon to get back in the truck. "Stay low," Alex says as he drives, keeping an eye on the SUV in the rearview mirror. Sure enough, it begins following them. When they're far enough outside town, Alex pulls onto a dirt road, leading the SUV into an open area surrounded by trees. He stops the truck, steps out, and waits. The SUV pulls up, and two men in suits step out. "Mr. Carter," one of them says, his tone icy. "We suggest you stop digging into matters that don't concern you." "They concern me when they involve my family," Alex replies, his voice calm but dangerous. The men exchange a glance. "This is a warning," the other man says. "Leave the ranch and let this go. Senator Steele has powerful friends." Alex smirks, his hand resting on his holstered pistol. "Tell Steele I don't scare that easily." The men get back in the SUV and drive off, but Alex knows this encounter confirms everything. Steele is behind the gang's actions, and he's willing to go to great lengths to protect his operation. Back at the ranch, Alex receives a call from Tyler, who has uncovered damning evidence. Offshore accounts tied to Steele, with large payments to Vargas and other known criminals. Tyler also finds records of property acquisitions near the border, suggesting Steele has been building a network for his smuggling operation. "We've got enough to expose him," Alex tells Maria, "but we'll need to move fast. Steele won't sit back if he knows we're onto him." Maria looks at Alex, her expression resolute. "Whatever it takes, we'll do it." As the chapter closes, Alex begins assembling the evidence into a dossier to send to a trusted journalist. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit office far from the ranch, Steele reviews a report about Alex's interference. If Carter doesn't back off, Steele says coldly, "Take him out." The battle for Maria's ranch is no longer just about protecting family. It's about taking down a powerful, corrupt force that threatens justice itself. The sky over Maria's ranch is a muted gray, the calm before the storm. Inside the house, Alex sits at the kitchen table, his laptop open in front of him. The evidence his Navy buddy Tyler uncovered is staggering. Financial records tying Senator Robert Steele to Juan Vargas and Los Diablos, encrypted communications discussing weapons shipments, and land purchases strategically positioned near the U.S.-Mexico border. Maria and Ramon sit across from Alex, their expressions a mixture of awe and apprehension as Alex organizes the evidence into a dossier. "This isn't just about our ranch," Maria says quietly. "This is about stopping something much bigger." Alex nods, his fingers flying over the keyboard. Steele's building an empire of corruption, and this land is his next stepping stone. If we don't stop him, he'll turn this region into a hub for smuggling and crime. Once the dossier is complete, Alex sends it to an investigative journalist named Emily Davis, someone he trusts to handle the story with care. She responds quickly, arranging a call to confirm the information. "This is explosive," Emily says over the phone, her voice sharp with urgency. "If this goes public, Steele's career and his operation are finished. But you need to be careful. He won't take this lying down." Alex knows she's right. Steele's power and resources make him a dangerous enemy, and exposing him will likely provoke retaliation. As Alex disconnects the call, Maria steps closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're doing the right thing," she says. "That doesn't make it any easier," Alex replies, his voice heavy with the weight of responsibility. Later that day, Alex drives into town to meet Emily in person, handing over a physical copy of the dossier. They sit in a quiet corner of the cafe, discussing the next steps. Emily assures Alex that the story will be published within 24 hours, but Alex's instincts tell him that Steele won't wait that long to strike back. On his way back to the ranch, Alex notices the black SUV from before following him again. This time, it doesn't keep its distance. The SUV accelerates, forcing Alex's truck off the road and into a ditch. Alex reacts quickly, grabbing his pistol as the SUV screeches to a halt. Two men step out, armed and menacing. "You've gone too far, Carter," one of them says. Without hesitation, Alex takes cover behind his truck and fires a warning shot. The men exchange nervous glances but don't retreat. A tense standoff ensues, ending when Alex's precise aim disables one of the men, forcing the other to flee. As the SUV disappears down the road, Alex checks his surroundings, ensuring the immediate threat is gone. He knows this is just the beginning. Steele's men won't stop until they silence him for good. Back at the ranch, Alex reinforces the property's defenses, working tirelessly into the night. Maria joins him outside, her determination shining through her weariness. "They'll come for us, won't they?" she asks. "Yes," Alex says bluntly, "but we'll be ready." Maria nods, her gaze fixed on the horizon. This land has survived wars, droughts, and everything in between. It'll survive this, too. As dawn breaks, the story goes live. Emily's article is front-page news, detailing Steele's corruption, his ties to Los Diablos, and his illegal land grabs. The public outcry is immediate, with social media and news outlets flooding with demands for an investigation. Steele's office issues a weak denial, but the evidence is overwhelming. At the ranch, Maria watches the news coverage with a mixture of hope and anxiety. "You've exposed him," she says to Alex. "Now we just have to survive the fallout." Steele, furious and desperate, escalates his retaliation. That afternoon, a convoy of SUVs and motorcycles arrives at the ranch. This time, it's not just Juan Vargas and his gang. It's mercenaries hired by Steele, heavily armed and well-coordinated. Alex spots them approaching from his lookout point in the barn. He radios Maria and Ramon inside the house. "They're here. Stay inside and stick to the plan." The mercenaries spread out, attempting to surround the property. Alex uses the traps and defenses he set up to slow their advance, but these men are far more disciplined than the gang members he fought before. The first wave of attackers breaches the fence, only to trigger hidden flashbangs and spike strips. Alex takes them down methodically, his Navy SEAL training shining through as he outmaneuvers the mercenaries. Inside the house, Maria and Ramon hold their ground. Ramon, determined to make up for his past betrayal, takes up a defensive position by the door. "They're not getting past us," he says firmly, his fear replaced by resolve. The battle intensifies as night falls. Alex faces off against Juan Vargas in a brutal hand-to-hand fight near the barn. Juan, fueled by years of hatred for Maria, taunts Alex. "You can't protect her forever," he sneers. Alex counters with a fierce uppercut, knocking Juan to the ground. "This ends here," Alex says, pinning Juan down and disarming him. Meanwhile, Steele's mercenaries breach the house, but Maria's knowledge of the ranch gives her and Ramon the upper hand. Using hidden passageways and defensive traps, they repel the intruders, forcing them to retreat. As the dust settles, the remaining mercenaries flee, realizing they've underestimated their opponents. Alex drags Juan back to the house, tying him up for the authorities. By the time the sheriff arrives, the ranch is littered with signs of the battle. Alex hands over Juan Vargas and provides evidence tying him directly to Steele. The sheriff, a longtime ally of Maria's, promises to ensure justice is served. As Alex watches the SUVs and motorcycles disappear into the distance, he knows the fight isn't over. Steele may have been exposed, but his influence still looms large. The chapter ends with Alex and Maria standing side by side on the porch, their silhouettes framed by the setting sun. "You've given this land a fighting chance," Maria says, her voice filled with gratitude. Alex looks out at the ranch, battered but unbroken. "We're not done yet," he says, "but we're closer than we were yesterday." In the distance, a faint breeze carries the scent of hope and resilience, a promise that justice will prevail, no matter the cost. The ranch is quiet the morning after the battle. The sun rises over the fields, casting long shadows on the scorched earth and broken fences. The damage is undeniable, but the ranch still stands, a testament to the resilience of Maria, Alex, and their resolve to protect what's right. Inside the house, Maria sips her coffee at the kitchen table, her fingers tracing the edge of an old photo of her and her late husband. Across from her, Alex is on the phone with Emily Davis, the journalist whose article exposing Senator Steele has sent shockwaves through the country. "You've done it, Alex," Emily says. "The FBI is opening an official investigation into Steele's activities. The evidence you provided was airtight, and Vargas's arrest only solidifies the case." Steele's scrambling to save himself. Alex exhales deeply, relief washing over him. "He won't be able to hide this time," he replies. As Alex hangs up, Maria smiles faintly. "You've done more than just protect this land," she says. "You've given people hope." Later that day, a black SUV pulls up to the ranch. Alex tenses, his hand instinctively moving toward his holstered pistol, but the vehicle bears the emblem of the FBI. Two agents step out, their expressions serious but non-threatening. "We're here for Juan Vargas," one of them says. Alex leads them to the barn, where Vargas is tied to a post, sullen and defeated. "He's all yours," Alex says, stepping aside. As the agents escort Vargas into the SUV, he turns to Alex and sneers. "You think this is over? Steele's bigger than you. He'll come back stronger." Alex meets his gaze with unwavering determination. "Let him try," he replies. "We'll be ready." The SUV drives away, leaving a cloud of dust in its wake. As the sun sets over the ranch, Maria and Alex sit on the porch, watching the horizon. Ramon joins them, his shoulders slumped with guilt. "I don't know if I can ever make up for what I did," he says quietly. Maria places a hand on his arm. "You've already started," she says. "What matters is that you chose to fight for what's right in the end." Alex nods. "You stood your ground when it counted. That's what people will remember." Ramon looks up, his eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and determination. "Thank you," he says, "for giving me a chance to make things right." Over the next few weeks, the ranch begins to heal. Alex works tirelessly to repair the fences and reinforce the house, while Maria tends to the livestock. News of their victory spreads through the nearby village, inspiring the townspeople to stand up to the remnants of Los Diablos. One day, Alex receives a call from Emily. Steele's been arrested, she announces, her voice brimming with triumph. The FBI raided his office this morning. Between the financial records, Vargas's testimony, and the public pressure, he didn't stand a chance. Alex shares the news with Maria, who closes her eyes in quiet relief. Justice, she whispers. At last. With Steele's empire crumbling, the region begins to stabilize. The townspeople band together to rebuild, and Maria's ranch becomes a symbol of resilience and resistance. People from the village visit to offer their thanks, bringing food and supplies as a gesture of gratitude. One evening, Maria hosts a small gathering at the ranch. Neighbors, friends, and even some of Alex's old military comrades join them, sharing stories and laughter under the Texas stars. For the first time in months, the air feels light, free of the tension that had hung over the ranch like a storm cloud. As the crowd begins to disperse, Maria and Alex sit together on the porch. The soft glow of lanterns illuminates their faces as they share a moment of quiet reflection. What will you do now? Maria asks, her gaze fixed on Alex. I think it's time to move on, Alex says thoughtfully, but not back to my old life. This fight has reminded me why I joined the Navy in the first place, to protect people, to stand for something bigger than myself. Maria smiles, her eyes shining with pride. You've done more for this family than I could ever repay, she says. You've already repaid me, Alex replies. You taught me what it means to fight for what matters. The story ends with a peaceful scene. Maria standing in her garden, her hands tending to the soil, and Alex driving off down the dusty road, his truck packed with gear. As he glances back at the ranch one last time, he sees Maria waving from the porch. The land is quiet again, but this time, it feels secure, protected not just by fences and traps, but by the courage and unity of those who stood together to defend it. In the distance, the sun dips below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the fields. The fight for justice is over, but the legacy of Maria's ranch lives on, a beacon of hope and resilience for all who hear its story. Justice has prevailed, and those who fought for it have found redemption, proving that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage and kindness can change the world.